MovieWeb.com.
So I really enjoyed the movie. It's just a wonderful movie. You've got so much going on, and it's clearly a character piece about this man and the relationship that he eventually has with this woman, but yet you've got so much going on. You've got the backdrop of 9/11 and all sort of prejudice that happened in this country.
Right.
After that, the Asperger's element. You've also got terrorism, Muslim versus Hindu. So all those different kind of elements as a backdrop. Can you talk about, as a director, balancing all those elements and telling this story at this quiet story at the same time?
Actually, at its heart and soul level, it's a film about humanity. It's about just simple, forgotten force, which is humanity. And I think most of us seem to have forgotten the power of that. So it was really to address that on a large level. What we also wanted to address was the fact that there's a global perception of a religion, of an entire community, which is a result of a large amount of unawareness, and it's spreading, and it's unfair because there's a certain amount of subjugation as a result of this unawareness, and we want to address that. Islam is a religion that teaches good things like Christianity or Hinduism, and it's no different from any other religion, and people from that world should not be then judged just for the religion as a result of the acts of some people. And that was really something we want to address on a global scale. Now, we wanted to address it emotionally and dramatically, and that's why we chose for our protagonist to have this mental condition, because eventually, when in a fit of anger, when his wife screams and says, "Go and tell the President of America that your name is Khan and you're not a terrorist," no neurotypical man would embark on an impossible journey, because logic and plausibility, sensibility, all would come in the way of that. But here's a man who doesn't think like you and I do. When he's given an instruction, he goes out and follows it, and he follows it to its ultimate level. And that's what Rizwan Khan does. And he could not be like you and I. That's why we had to give him this mental condition. But predominantly, My Name is Khan is really about communicating that there are good people and bad people in the world, and that is the only difference. You could be from any caste, creed, and community, and you should not be judged for that by anyone at all. And that kind of subjugation has to be diluted. The impact of that has to be lessened. And if this film is one tiny little step in that direction, then that's what we will call an achievement within itself.
Well, it's interesting because Khan sort of innately seems to have to know that, to be knowledgeable innately of the fact that there's good and there's bad, but yet that's sort of the lesson that his mother teaches him that he learns throughout the course of the film, isn't it?
He doesn't really understand the gray area of life at all. He's been taught by his tutor as a child, his mother. He doesn't get why people lie. He doesn't understand what a lie is. He just takes things literally. He doesn't understand why people lie. He doesn't understand the gray zone of life. He just lives in black and white. He knows that's that. There's nothing else he knows. So he's almost aspirational as a human being, because we are also cluttered in our heads. We have so much information. We have doubt, and we have insecurities and complexes. He doesn't get any of that. That's why his vulnerability is actually his biggest strength, and that's what we try to portray through him. There's no human being like Rizwan Khan. Nobody is like him. So when he's asked on a dining table by the hosts of a dinner, did you like the chicken, and he'll say no, because he doesn't like it. We have social graces and tacts come in the way. Our tactful nature sometimes comes in the way of our conversation, but he doesn't know how to lie. So if someone asks him a question, even if you're meant to give the politically correct answer, he will say the truth, and that works in both ways. It's also, his honesty is also very endearing and heartening, but also can be offensive, which is what we showed in its own characteristic way. So it was a challenge for us to portray him in this film.
Yeah, absolutely. And then talk a little bit about the relationship that he has with Mandira, and obviously it's the thread throughout the two storylines that kind of are shown in the film. It's the thread throughout it. So talk about that relationship and the importance of her to him.
To me, Mandira just took over where his mother left off. To me, that was always my subtext of that love story. It was really, he replaced his mother by his wife, and that's why he saw his mother in his wife, and that's why he was so passionately involved with her, because somehow she just reminded him of his mother, who was such a tremendous influence on his life. And so when he meets Mandira in San Francisco on his sales meetings, he goes completely madly and ballistically in love with her, because he's felt a void after his mother, and she just fills that void for him. And that's why I thought the love story needed to kind of have a certain innocence, a certain charm. And Shah Rukh, who plays Rizwan Khan, and Kajol, who plays Mandira, the two of them, they have a certain chemistry because they've done 5 huge love stories before this. They have a certain understanding of each other's body language, understanding of each other's presence on celluloid. And I just think that they just get it so right that you believe the love story. That from the very first time Rizwan enters the hair salon and gives his little spiel about who he is, and you see Mandira's reaction to that, you know she's fallen in love with him immediately. And her reaction convinces you as an audience of their love story. Because otherwise it's such a difficult love story to convince an audience for. Because he has Asperger's, she is a divorcee who may not, why would she be interested or attracted to a man who, after being through what she's been through, who has this kind of a mental condition. So it was very important that the performances really took over the logic of the situation, and that's what happened finally. I think Mandira's depiction by Kajol really, really makes the love story believable.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was going to be my next question: was how does she fall in love? But yeah, absolutely, you put that just precisely. And he's so wonderful in the film, and is such a great, gifted actor. Do you know what his process was, of sort of learning about the Asperger's and then attempting to portray that character?
Shivani Batija, the screenwriter of the film, did a fair amount of research on Asperger's. What we did is we also got in touch with a couple called Chris and Gisela, who wrote a book called Asperger's in Love, Asperger's in Marriage, 2 books actually. They lived in London. We went and met them a series of times, spent a lot of time with them, recorded them, read the book, gave all that research to Shah Rukh, in tandem with, of course, all the research we did from National Autistic Societies in LA, in New York, in London. We gave all the material to Shah Rukh, who had to work and create Rizwan out of all that. Then Shah Rukh on his own in Mumbai met people with the disorder. In fact, he knew somebody from his family who has the same condition, who he spent a lot of time with. And one day, after a whole month of research and work, he called me over and he said, okay, this is how I'm going to walk. This is how I'm going to speak. This is where I will stammer. This is how my head will be arched. This is how my neck will be. This is how I think I should be costumed. We sat and for a whole day worked it all out, and he created Rizwan out of all the research he had and all the research he did on his own. So it was a long, lengthy process really to portray Rizwan, because it was not a character that we know, not a character that. And what's interesting about Asperger's is that there are no 2 people who have this exact same characteristics who have Asperger's. They're completely unique. Each one can be different from the other. So we could take a few liberties to create Rizwan Khan, which is what Shah Rukh as an actor did.
I wanted to ask, obviously, I don't want to give too much away, but there's something that happens to Sam in the film that starts him on his quest throughout the film. So talk a little bit about his relationship with Sam, the importance of that character to him, and then how that sort of sends him on his quest.
Well, actually, it was very important that we kind of create a beautiful bond between Sam and Rizwan because of the big incident that happens with Sam. We needed to kind of feel the relationship, the love, the bond, and the connect. What happens with people in this condition is because they also can be very childlike, so they connect with children on a very emotional and on a very, I would say, on a friendly level immediately. There's no such thing, though there's an age gap of over 25 years between them as characters, yet they connected as one unit, and that's what we needed to portray. So there were 2 Sams in the film. There was a 6-year leap we take in the narrative. So we had to have both Sams that were cast effectively, that would look like each other. So that casting, of course, took us a fair amount of time. And also Shah Rukh's connect with the characters, Rizwan's connect with the Sams in the movie was very important. And I think Shah Rukh as an actor, that's Rizwan in the film, he's in any case very good with children. He's always been very good on celluloid with children. I mean, I think out of the screen zone, he has a beautiful connect with kids, and I think that comes up very effectively even on screen. So he in any case has that kind of a rapport with children, which he had with even our characters who played the 2 Sams in the film. And that relationship was critical to the film. It had to kind of come out as warm and emotional for it to then make you react much later.
Yeah. And then finally, you mentioned, obviously you're dealing with all these broad subjects, and you're really making this film for a broad audience. I would imagine an international audience, since it takes place in the United States and deals with so many different themes that are important to both of our cultures. So I just wanted to ask you as a director about, really setting something up for different cultures to be able to follow and understand in that aspect, and sort of in the genre of the film.
Well, predominantly our protagonist was Indian, and of course the situation is global. And we've researched the entire situation, the religion, the circumstance in America and around. It was a lot of research that went into portraying these various layers of the film. But at its heart and soul level, it's about an Indian character that we understand and know really well. And his beats, even though he has a mental condition that is not like you and I, we knew that the ethos of the film is very close to us because we come from that part of the world. Everything else we just had to get right in terms of facts, figures, and research, which we did effectively. So for me, it will always remain a film with an Indian heart, on a global scale. On a global message, yeah. It reminded me, with all due respect, if you don't mind me saying, a few American films, in particular Forrest Gump. Right. Rain Man, those sort of... Rain Man, I think there were some people who did say that was Forrest Gumpish in its narrative struggle. I think it's a journey film. It's about a man with a disorder who's on a journey, so you immediately make the comparison. But having said that, when we structured it and wrote it, it was really not what we intended to do. It just seemed to have become that. And if you see, there's not a single scene that's common between the two films. It's just the fact that it's a journey film with a man who has a mental condition. So you might draw that comparison.